Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia and this is the Frontline Changes Report for the 22nd of September for the day of 942 for the Ukraine war or the special military operation in Ukraine. And so there is a lot of frontline changes and massive intel drops and as well as geolocations that is mind-blowing, and everything is in the Donetsk front, rather the Donetsk Oblast. So it's all along the New York front, Pokrovsk front to the Donetsk front. Basically, they are still part of the Donetsk front per se. So there's frontline changes over in Torex, in the New York front, New York, Nelipivka, Krutia in the Pokrovsk front, in the south of Selidove, Ukraine's Vodyane, Vuhledar, and Precious Divka. So we're going to go from Torex. At the New York front, at Torex, there is updates in the front lines. This is based on Russian claim. It is actually not captured. I write it wrong. This is a Russian claim. So Russian sources have claimed that the Russian forces has a more expanded zone. Oh, that's so tiny. Okay, give me. So like this, there is a bit more than what the Ukrainian side have actually alluded to, and on top of that, actually I should do this. Let's draw this. Okay, put this. So this in Torex, by the way, this center of Torex, and the Ukrainian mapping have confirmed that the Russian forces have taken this part of the forest and the hill, as well as full control over the prison in Torex. So this is the update over within Torex itself. So this is a continued progression. This is expected from the Russians because they have some kind of advantage around here. However, then we have this massive chunk of frontline change coming from the pro-Russian side. So first, before we go on, at the New York region, the Ukrainian mapping have reduced the front line by a little bit. So they claim that the Russians have actually this area here, and they also disclaimed everything within the New York region, within the New York, where there's a all this industrial region. Like they totally disclaim all this area. So they now say that the Russians have re-entered into Nelipivka from the eastern part, as well as disclaiming part of this wide expanse of ground which the Ukrainians can't possibly have position in. So this is the frontline change according to the Ukrainians. But the Russian reporting has way past that. So based on the Russian reporting, the Russian sources have claimed that the Russian forces have captured Nelipivka. This is in corroboration with the situation over at Leonidivka, where there is geolocation of Russian forces within it. And this also leads to massive changes in the front line in the Russian mapping, which includes part of this Zabalka micro district of Torex, as well as the full capture of Nelipivka. So according to the Russian mapping, the Russian forces actually captured the entire of Nelipivka, and leading all the way up to Leonidivka on this western flank of this operation around here. So this is a massive claim coming from the Russian side, but this do corroborates with the information about the Russians attacking towards Skibinivka. There's fighting reported in the area of Skibinivka. I believe that the actual reality might even be more than this. Maybe the front line actually is way further, way closer to Skibinivka. If not, I don't think it makes sense to claim Skibinivka is under attack. But this is based on the Russian claim right now, and the Ukrainians are still talking about only here. They say that the Russians only taken these places. The disparity between the two sides is now getting really huge. This gulf between the two perspective of what's happening right here is becoming really big. So this, we shall see how this develop. I would say this is still very much in the gray zone at this moment. We still do not know what's happening. My personal opinion is that is still way more advanced than what the Russians has claimed, and fighting is now already reaching Petrivka no, and Skibinivka. But let's see how this goes. So Petrivka is mentioned by the Ryba as well. So the next front line change after this area is at Pokrovsk front. So over in the north of Horodivka, Russian forces have taken Krutya. I mentioned this during the situation report, I believe, and this was actually the front line change that was noted based on the geolocation before I reported the situation report around yeah, less than 12 hours ago. So this is one frontline change around here. The next frontline change is south of this position over in Selidove. So let's zoom in. Let's do it in which way? Okay, around Sukerini then. So this Ukraine's. Ukraine's until now we still do not have firm confirmation of the Russian capture of it. But what we do have is that the Russians have expanded the control in the northwestern flank of Ukraine as the Russians continue to expand towards the direction towards that northwest direction in the direction of the railway line. Which will go through Sukerini. The Russians also expanded control according to the Ukrainian mapping. This is based on Deep State US mapping. This is also by Deep State US mapping that the Russians have also expanded southwest of Ukraine. So this is almost unbelievable that the Ukrainians would still have any position around here. I don't think so. I think the Ukrainians at most have the position along this tree line, and even this tree line feels very unbelievable. So whatever it is, this will look like a massive pincer attack with the Russian forces attacking towards Sukerini from the south of Ukraine, and then another attack coming from the north. So this will pincer the huge amount of forces if the Ukrainians are actually there. So this is a huge frontline change around Ukraine, and there's further implications because this would also allow the Russians coming from the northwest of Ukraine to attack from the towards the south of Selidove, allowing the Russians to now have a two-pronged attack, which the Russians needed usually to attack such a big city. So this is the ongoing situation, and the southern part, the South Ukraine part, also leads to an attack in the direction of Khernik as well. So this will allow the Russians to attack the north of Khernik. So these are all very consequential frontline change. As you can see, if I draw in a bigger term, you can see that these attacks. So let me draw the arrow first. Will allow the Russians to attack south of Selidove, north of Surikini, the one in the south of Ukraine, attack Surikini from the east, or attack south towards Khernik. So there's a lot of possibility that the Russians can do from these frontline changes. So, but let's see how this continue to develop, and see how much more Deep State UA is willing to give up, in terms of the intel. So after the Ukraine's, we jump all the way down to the Donetsk front to Vodyane. So a lot of frontline changes along this line. So in the Vodyane region, the Russian forces have secured the south of Vodyane. This is part of a huge line of disclaim and updated front line from Deep State UA, confirming Russians continue to consolidate position around the Vodyane region. This update continued to stretch southward towards Vuhledar, and let me move these arrows up. So the Russian forces in their mapping continues, and actually the Russians, according to the Ukrainian mapping, this is not Russian propaganda, this is Ukrainian information, that the Russians have recaptured the entire Dacha region. The last time the Russians did this was a long time ago, probably around 2 years ago. So this is a massive update coming from the Ukrainian side, and this means that the Ukrainians are now on the verge of getting attacked directly onto Vuhledar again by the Russian forces. They are literally just across the street. So Vuhledar is now under threat, and I'm not sure if the Russians will hit into it directly. So this is a massive update coming from the Ukrainian mapping with this huge frontline change. And clearly, as I mentioned many times ago, this can't possibly be a one-day advance. This is basically the Ukrainian mapping hiding these frontline changes, for multiple days. And I'm quite sure they have the information. They just hold back the information, and because we have updates from the Russian side, right? So the Russian mapping, if you only based on from the Russian mapping to the latest mapping, it doesn't look very big. The frontline change is big, but still not as big as what the Ukrainians mapping is. You see, Ukraine mapping, the frontline change is almost 3 kilometers or 2.6 kilometers. This huge amount of grounds that suddenly change hands. So anyway, this is Vuhledar, but on the other side, massive updates from the Ukrainian mapping as well. So this is on the western part, eastern part of Preshestivka, western part of Vuhledar. Ukrainian mapping have also in conjunction with the geolocation confirmed that the Russians have captured massive amounts of ground on the eastern part of Preshestivka. So the Russian forces captured all these areas here, all this farmland. The entire front line is almost 6 kilometers, 5.6 kilometers, and it goes as deep from the established front line to around 2.6 kilometers. So this is a massive amount of ground lost by the Ukrainians, and the Ukrainian source, Deep State UA, has announced that the situation here has deteriorated so badly that the Russians are about to pincer Vuhledar. So if you combine these two frontline changes together, you'll see that the Russians are now on the verge of conducting a pincer. So this advance at the Vodyane region, advance on Vuhledar, and then there is advance in the west, east of Preshestivka, and then now you can see the pincer developing around here. This is possible. And there's also possible encirclement coming from the south and north of Polivka as well. And basically, based on the Ukrainian information, they're saying that the retreat route is on the verge of being cut off for Vuhledar. So this is way faster than I thought the Russians would do, because I thought the Russians would go for a bigger pincer. But this is a smaller one. And it just shows the severe problems that is facing the Ukrainians right now. I think they may not actually have the forces to hold up this Russian offensive. This is a massive amount of ground loss in a matter of days. We are talking about like 3 days only. So this is a lot of ground loss. So it is what it is. Anyway, thank you for watching. This is the frontline changes report. And so check out for the situation report over here. And I will do the situation report later today. I'll see you guys in the next update.